Welcome to the Get Out In It podcast, keeping our mental and physical well-being balanced by heading out into nature and doing stuff.
The activity isn't important. Walk, run, hike, bike, whatever it is, just find something you enjoy and get out in it. The point of this podcast is to show how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary levels of health and fitness.
Out here, we'll share informal, inclusive advice for anyone trying to improve their mental and physical well-being, based on our own experiences and professional knowledge from our special guests.
So let's lace up and get out in it. Recording in progress.
Well, here we are, back for episode 2, and what a treat we have in store for you all this week. Not only is Maria Herring with me, but we are also joined by a fascinating guest later in the pod. Maria Herring, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, James Bell. I am also super excited to speak to our guest a little bit later on. Low-key anxious, but I'm excited to see what she's going to discover in the deep, dark depths of my psyche. But apart from that, pretty good. I had a really good week last week. Did lots of training, which I'm surprised at because I had such a busy weekend. Fun fact about me, I sing in a choir. And at the weekend, I had a big concert. So I've been super, super busy with lots of rehearsals and everything. And I'm really pleased that I managed to get all of my training in despite having a busier than usual schedule to contend with. How are you, James Bale?
Yeah, I'm good. It's like yourself. It's been a busy week, but I'm looking forward to the weekend as it'll be my final long run before the Bristol Half Marathon the weekend after. And
Bristol Half Marathon.
Yeah, I've got a very special job to do at that race. I get to be a pacer. So
you're a pacer? Who are you pacing, James Bale?
What's the goal, Maria Herring? What's the plan?
Okay, so Bristol Half Marathon. Right, I did it last year. You paced me last year. It was such a wicked experience. Last year, first time ever, I wanted to do a sub 2. I didn't do a sub 2. I did a 2:02, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. And I had a great experience. But this year, James Bale, I want to do a sub 2.
So I'm going to run that pace and you are going to hang on to the back, eh?
I'm going to try and keep up with you. We'll see. We shall see. Got out in it. I have done all my training. So on Monday, I did my medium run. I went out for an hour and a half, did about 12 or 13 Ks. That was awesome up in the forest. Got absolutely pissed on. It was mental because when I left my house, it was super sunny. Went into the forest, couldn't see a thing, came out of the forest, and all of a sudden, clouds everywhere, pissed on me. So yeah, I got super soaked on that one. But it was a really good run. On Tuesday, I did my speed intervals down the park. I also did my yoga. On Thursday, I did my strength training. Are you proud?
Very, very well done. How's that new bar?
Oh, it's so much better with a bigger bar.
Good.
Oh, it's changed my life. That's hyperbolic. It hasn't really changed my life, but it is much better. Did my strength training, did my hike. This morning, I did my fitness session with Tony for sports in the park. I've done loads of training this week. I've done it all. It's amazing. How about you? Did you get out in it?
Yeah, it's been a good week. I'm kind of I'm refinding my groove a little bit. I mean, as you know, I broke my ankle in early January 2022, and it was
so long ago.
I know, but it was a hard year last year trying to get back running. And for the first time in what feels like a year and a half now, almost, I'm starting to feel that sort of be able to run without any pain, without any pain in my foot, without any weakness in my ankle, and I'm enjoying the running and doing comfortable mileage. So that's good fun. And I've done a couple of runs this week. I haven't done any strength yet, but I will do this weekend. I think we're both going to do a joint strength session this weekend coming up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm just full of the joys of movement and activity at the moment.
Good. Mr. Bang on about strength hasn't done any strength. What a bastard.
Well, you know. Anyway, we had a couple of listeners get in touch with us. So I want to give a shout out to Karen Ebwen, who is often found on the bike trainer. But this week, her and her husband went out for a windy bike ride together. She told me that it made her feel like an athlete, but it also reminded her, because she's a triathlete and trains for triathlon, that sitting on the bike trainer isn't always ideal preparation for a race day when you don't know what the conditions are going to be like. So getting out in the wind reminded her that, you know, I think maybe a bit more outside training might be the order of the day, eh?
Well, good for you, Karen. I'm proud of you. Well done. Can I do some shout outs?
Yes, you can.
I want to give a quick shout out to a friend of mine from the States who started following us on YouTube, my moon sister Casey Gallagher. Thanks for following. But I also would like to give a special shout out to Lucy Hezer, who is starting on a very difficult journey this week. And I'm so proud of her, like super, super dupes proud of her. And she also said, she got in touch with us and said that she's going outdoors. Her going outdoors this week has helped her immensely. So good work, Lucy Hez. I'm super proud of you.
Good work. As am I. As am I. Let's have a chat with our really interesting guest.
Yes, let's get out in it with our guest.
Getting into it. So this week I'd like to welcome Adelaide Goodeve. Adelaide's a brain trainer who specialises in helping people understand and exercise their neuropathways to activate and strengthen their desired thoughts, feelings, behaviours, and responses. Adelaide, thank you for taking the time to join us on Get Out in It. It's an absolute pleasure to have you along. First of all, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very well, thank you. Enjoying life to the maximum, which is awesome. Now coming into spring, so the weather is picking up.
Yeah, it's starting to get longer days, isn't it? More time to be outside, which is, I'm going to start with that first question, which is a question we're going to ask everybody who comes on the podcast. What have you done this week to be getting out in it?
I've been walking 3 to 4 hours a day. I live in Norway, and then I'm outside every day skiing for 2 to 6 hours a day. I'm downhill, off-piste, or cross-country. Today, I'm in the UK looking after my parents' dog, and he is a 15-month-old Labrador who is full of energy and thinks my full-time job is throwing him a ball. So we're out walking 1.5 hours morning, then 1.5 hours in the evening, and maybe something in between, usually me throwing the ball, as he is quite obsessed. But I love it. Every day I do a walking meditation with him. So I'm super calm, getting into nature, feeling the abundance, and you just come out having prime job brain for the day ahead, which is wonderful.
Excellent. That's what we would like to hear. I've seen the
Sounds amazing.
Handsome little dog on your Instagram account, and he looks like an absolute pleasure to be around.
He is. My mum has done a very good job at training him, and he is just delightful.
So I gave a little intro and a tease as to what you do, but I don't really want to start there. I want to start with why you do what you do and what brought you to the profession of brain training.
It was very left field. For about 3 or 4 years, I suffered with severe chronic fatigue syndrome in my late teens and early 20s. And for those who don't know, severe chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, is when you're tired all of the time. And it's not a tiredness where maybe you went to bed at like 1 or 2 a.m., you were partying hard, and then you wake up, or when you've done an Ironman and it's the next day. It's a tiredness which is so deep in your bones and unescapable. Brushing your teeth is like climbing Mount Everest. And it's really difficult to explain, but it's just when you're feeling really sick, maybe you've experienced long-term COVID, it's very similar. At the time, this was over 10 years ago now, and my doctor didn't believe in it. So, how can you have a condition that technically to him, in his map of the world, didn't exist? So he went to so many different doctors and opinions, and there's not one test you do, which is like, yes, you have this condition. It's a process of elimination. And when we finally got the diagnosis, I was really excited in a strange way, because it's like, finally, there's an action plan. We can finally get my life moving again instead of being bedridden with it. But the doctor, who was London's top doctor at the time in this field, basically said that there was nothing to do and it's going to get worse. Best of luck, and sent me off. And we walked out with my mum, and we're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, when was that? What year would that have been? How long ago would we have been talking?
That was over 10 years ago.
Okay.
My maths is terrible. So what, 2011, 2012, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And I decided at that point I was not going to be a victim anymore. And I was going to, grab life with both hands with the little energy I had and find a cure, find a recovery, because I was like, there has to be one. And I just rejected every opinion until I found one I actually liked. And it was at that time where, blogging and podcasting was really taking off. And there were a few people talking about how they use nutrition or different types of therapies to gain a recovery and to live their ultimate life. And I tried so many different things which had little impact until I discovered a 3-day brain training program. And it taught you how to spot when you were doing stuckness. So turning the unconscious conscious. In my case, I was stuck doing severe chronic fatigue syndrome. and then how to activate and strengthen the neuropathways for the results you want. So for me, it was calm energy because I was stuck in this doing the fight or flight response, and I was always in, the flight and doing that when you've switched on the sympathetic nervous system and it's always on it, you just end up doing, in my case, chronic fatigue syndrome. So I had to be the calm energy. I was like, I want loads of energy, but that wasn't working. It was calm energy was the key for me. And your brain is plastic. It changes, grows, and develops as a result of how you use it. And you can accelerate that process using different brain training strategies. What's also really cool is your brain can't tell the difference between what is real and what's imaginary. So you can also trick it into creating memories, because memories are just visualizations with powerfully attached emotions and feelings. And so you can trick your brain using these special strategies to get the results you want within seconds. And after 3 days, I'd fully recovered. I'd went from being bedridden, barely able to get out of bed, cooking from the sidelines with my mum, sitting on a stool, wearing sunglasses in dark winter days, to suddenly being able to do CrossFit, to live and work in Australia on a cattle station, hiking in the pool for 3 months. So it was really quite extraordinary, the transformation I got. And then I got into coaching because I actually had a relapse and I started to use the old brain pathways again. And I decided that I needed more ammo in my mindset toolbox. I need to really understand, how does the brain work, so I'm never in this position again where I'm having to quit life and kind of live it by the sidelines. And that's when I started to do coaching, and I just fell into it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so fascinating what the brain can do. And we're not taught that we are active in the process of creating our reality, and that we're active in the process of creating our inner world and influencing our outer world. And it's just fascinating and quite extraordinary, the results you can get once you understand that, and once you start implementing the strategies on a daily basis that exercises your brain for the life you want to live.
Absolutely. It makes me think of something that I say a lot, which is that external motivation is not something to rely on to try and get yourself to do the things you want to do. And these things have to come from within and from strategies you've put in place to make yourself understand and want to go on the journey that you're going on. So it'd be interesting to learn a little bit more about that. I'm intrigued as to what do people, when they hear the term brain training, assume it is, and often how wrong are sometimes those assumptions?
That's a great question. To be honest, I'm still figuring it out. I find it really interesting. I mean, brain training, mindset, mindfulness, manifestation, law of attraction, all that kind of stuff basically means the same thing. You're exercising your neuropathways to get the results you do, and also the results you don't want, because your brain doesn't tell the difference between what's helpful to you and what's not. It tells the difference between what neuropathways are you using the most and what are you not. And you've got to be really conscious in activating and strengthening the neuropathways for the results you want. Often we get stuck because we have exercised and strengthened the neuropathways that get us the opposite results. I like to call you upside down geniuses, because we are so good at getting the wrong result, or just not the best result for what we want. When people come into my brain training and they start to understand my methods, I think a lot of my work is actually around education, because we are taught, even in mindfulness, I can't stand listening to a lot of meditations because they're telling you to let go of stress straight away. And the problem with that is, you've now put the thought of stress in my brain. You're getting me to activate the response for stress. And now you're getting me to edit and filter my reality to be like, oh, actually, what was stressful today? So when people come into my methods, the first thing we look at is language, because it is language that is the architecture and creator of your experiences around you. It is language that is activating and wiring your brain. And often people still tell me, when they've even done mindfulness, they still tell me what they don't want. I'm starting to work with a client this afternoon. I said, what's your ultimate goal? I don't want to be worried about money. I don't want to feel stressed. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to, take on other people's opinions. The problem with this is you're still activating the neuropathways and the responses, and you're still filtering your reality for those things, because your brain doesn't hear a negative want. I don't want. It has to understand the instruction first. So when you say I don't want to feel stress, the brain goes, wait, what is stress? What does that feel like? Okay, now I understand. Now I won't think about it. It's a bit like if I ask you, I do not want you to think of Einstein riding a pink unicorn juggling 5 purple monkeys. Yeah, right. You're thinking about it, right? And that's how the brain works. Even though I asked you not to think about it, you're still thinking about it. So it's really important that when we come to do brain training, we really understand the basics of how the brain functions, which is still missed out in so many things. I mean, even that 21-day thing to build a habit is, in my opinion, it's controversial, but I don't believe in it. Because when we come to install habits, a lot of people like, if you believe it's going to take you 21 days, it will take you 21 days or longer. And the problem is that you can be like, I want to do meditation, I want to go to the gym every day. But if you believe or identify as someone who doesn't do those things, that habit will still elude you. However, if you create your identity and belief that you are a person who is athletic and goes to the gym every day, or you're a calm person who meditates every day, you've installed that habit in that, if it's worked with me, for example, in that hour, and suddenly you are that person. Of course you meditate, of course you go to the gym. So it's really important that we have to sometimes unlearn our preconceptions and understandings to enable us to move forward in a better and more enjoyable way.
Do you sometimes think that the solutions you find with your clients are not what they expect? As in, they come in thinking you're going to say one thing, but it actually turns out to be something else, like going to the physio with a painful knee, but it turns out it's your glute,
Yeah.
a weakness in
So
your glute.
everyone, 100%. So everyone comes to me with the surface level stuff. Even leaders who have a team will come to me with the surface level stuff. So maybe, oh, they're not showing up to training, or they have a very negative mindset, or they're really stressed. And you suddenly start delving in and say, well, actually, they're not turning up to training because they have an eating disorder and they're body conscious. Like, oh my God, I had no idea. So you can really get quite stark issues coming up. I had another client and who was doing issues around eating. And the root cause we discovered was between 3 and 7, which is not unusual. And it was around growing up in a volatile and fearful environment, and that fear never left her. You know, the body holds on to emotions. It's in our cells and DNA. And you have to really consciously release those feelings in order to create transformation, because often the body can also become the brain. So they know that the brain and the heart, for example, can influence each other independently, especially the heart. It can influence the nervous system independently to the brain. So you really want to get coherent between brain, body, and heart.
Do you think that your experience of growing up or having a period of your life with an invisible illness to a point, do you think that helps you empathize with people that are struggling with their own journeys when it comes to brain training?
I've always been an empathetic person. I would say the ability that the ME or the chronic fatigue syndrome gave me and the recovery of that enabled me to understand how powerful the brain is, that you can create change very quickly on a seismic level, like on a level that should be technically impossible according to doctors. You know, you shouldn't be able to recover going from bedridden to walking 10 miles within days. It shouldn't be possible. So I understand when people are coming with these very stuck issues for sometimes 20 plus years, they've seen so many therapists and they're still stuck. My background has given me the ability to know that, you know, what they want to achieve is possible. It's just coming at it from a completely different direction, working with them and asking really great questions to get and to put in the reps in order to wire the brain and exercise the brain to get the results they want. If we're looking at the brain through or brain training, mindfulness mindset through very traditional psychology, it doesn't always completely take in that whole picture. You know, I'm doing a master's in performance psychology, and a lot of the research is saying change is very hard, it's very difficult to create, and that language, you know, is not very important when we're creating that change. And for me, it's quite surprising. This is still the thought. And when I've asked, hey, can I put in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rebuild itself, into my essays? No, you can't include that. So it's quite interesting when we come to understand how can we live our best life. And if we're approaching it through a very traditional outlook, it can be quite jarring in a way.
Okay. Well, so at the end of this, we'd like you to give us some examples of clients that you've helped and people that you've worked with. But we thought it'd be interesting because Maria's been struggling a bit with some aspects of her training and belief. We thought it might be helpful for the audience to listen in as you listen to her tell her story, let you ask some questions and see what kind of responses and solutions you might offer. So I'm going to sit back and let you both do your thing and keep myself quiet for a little bit.
Yeah. I'm super intrigued by this because Esther Perel, who's a relationship expert, did a whole podcast series on Amazon where you're literally find all in the coaching session. I love it. So I'm really intrigued by this concept.
Well, I'm a little bit nervous, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, I won't break down, but it's not that big a deal. But anyway, so last year, I've been running for about 2 years now. And last year, it was the beginning of June. I had a really strange wobble when I was going out on a weekend long run. So for me, I do a weekend long run. It's normally about 25 Ks. So I've done loads of those because I've been training for a couple of years. So it's not unusual for me. I've been doing that for a long time. But this one morning in June, I was heading to a village which isn't too far away from me in the Mont d'Or. It's called Polymur. It's my absolute favorite village of the whole Mont d'Or. And as I was running there, I somehow managed to convince myself that if I went down into that village, I'd run out of fluids, I'd get into trouble, I'd never be able to get back home, I'd be stuck. So, I mean, it was a warm day because it was summer, but it wasn't anything that I've never experienced before. I'd left at 9 o'clock in the morning. Normally these runs take about 3 hours, so I would have been back home before it got too hot. It was really strange that I suddenly managed to convince myself that I would, die of dehydration on that morning. So what I did is I turned around and I completed my long run just by running across the trails near to my house. And then the weirdest thing was, after that morning, I couldn't go back to that village. Like for months and months, I couldn't go into that village. Every time I tried to run towards the boundary of that village, something in my brain went, nah, and I had to turn around and go somewhere else. The only way I could get through that was when a few months later, JB came over to do some trails with me, and I went to Polymur with him, so not on my own. And then I could kind of say to myself, you see, it's the village that you love. It's not that scary. You can do it. There's nothing terrifying in this village. So I'd love to know, in your professional opinion, what the fuck was that about? It was so weird.
Has it happened again since, or just that one off?
There was, I mean, every now and then, if I'm going out for a big long run, sometimes as I'm leaving the door, I'm like, oh my God, I can't do 30K. It's like just a flash. But what I do is I kind of trick myself. I'll say as I'm leaving the house, it's okay, you don't have to do 30K, just do 10 and see how you feel. Stay on the trails close to home. And if you want to come back after 10K, you'll be close enough to home. Normally, by the time I'm out and about and I'm doing it, I can get through it. But I haven't had any big ones like that, like that one last year. So weird.
The brain can be really strange like that, and we don't know. Sometimes it can be a gut instinct. So maybe because we're only consciously processing 5% of the information, the rest of the 95% is unconscious. So sometimes we can pick something up that we're not aware of, and it can create, that's where that gut instinct comes from.
Okay.
The unconscious mind has processed something and then it's coming up in this way. So it could be that maybe that was going on. Or if you're having these flashes of like, oh my God, I can't do it, then it could be coming from maybe a belief or an identity. So as a runner, how would you identify what do you believe about yourself as a runner?
I'm always very careful to tell people that I just do it as a hobby. I do a few races every year, maybe 4 to 6 races every year. In fact, next week I'm going back to the UK to run the Bristol Half. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm well excited. But I'm always very careful to tell people that it's just a hobby. I'm not pro. It's just a passion. I do it for the health benefits, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure if I would. I don't identify myself as a runner first. And if somebody says, who are you? What do you do? I say I'm a teacher or I'm a writer. The identity of a runner doesn't come first, because I haven't really been a very sporty person. Last week on the pod, we talked about how I only came to this journey when I was 42 when I started running. And prior to that, I did like being outdoors. I liked hiking, but nobody ever would have called me a sports person at all.
How would you like to identify and believe about yourself as a runner or a sporty person?
I don't know, because I think the main reason why I got into it in the first place was for health. There, in my family, I have seen. I mean, I've last week I talked about getting into running and outdoor activity and sports because during the COVID period, I'd gained quite a lot of weight and I wanted to lose it. Digging a little bit deeper into that before COVID and in the COVID year, I'd watched 4 people in my family die of cancer, and I am terrified, like legit terrified of cancer. So the main reason why I like to run and be active now is I don't want to die of cancer. That's my reason for being active and doing sports.
So sometimes when we're coming from a place of fear, it can mean that if we're doing feelings of fear and we're coming from that place, that is where our thoughts are being guided from, because feelings create thoughts and thoughts create feelings. So we can sometimes get stuck in this limited loop because we've had a thought such as, I can't do 30K. And then that brings up feelings of not being able to do 30K, so self-doubt, which creates more thoughts, creates more feelings. And now your brain is editing your reality to match those thoughts and feelings because you're starting to activate and strengthen those neuropathways. And because we're now filtering our reality to match that, so I'm not a sporty person, I can't run 30K, I can't run 20K, I'm not a pro, it's just a hobby. That we're then making decisions and choices from these thoughts and feelings. So it's also that's further creating our reality, because we're all delusional in some form or other. We've all created our own reality, and it's just, we want to make it work for us, not work against us. And when we're having these kind of thoughts and our brain is editing our reality to match those thoughts and feelings, the more we think and feel those things, the more those brain pathways are being activated and strengthened. And the brain actually rebuilds itself to make it easier for you to think and feel in that way now and in the future. So our past experiences almost become a return. And we're anchored in the past doing these feelings and thoughts as the default ones, because we have all the other performance and life enhancing ones, but the default ones are kind of the foundational level ones that are underlying, especially if they're coming from an identity. So what we want to do instead is to really delve into, how would you love to feel and be? How would you love to think of yourself as a runner? Because it's great that it's a passion and that it is a hobby, and that could be actually, I'm really happy with that. There's also more delving into, well, what other reasons are there that will give you feelings of abundance and positivity, such as, I want to do it for thriving health instead of escaping something.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we want to be I say this to my clients, we want to be in this like abundance mindset and abundance feelings, because these are really high vibe, because all of our emotions are creating energy, and they are creating energy, and different emotions create different levels of energy. And when we're doing fear, it's very low energy, and it's almost zapping us of energy as well. Whereas when we're doing feelings like bliss, gratitude, in love with life feelings, abundance, these feelings and emotions have come with so much energy, and they create more energy within us as well. So it's really important we start to think, what feelings am I stepping into? What elevated emotions and feelings am I really living my life from? Because to fall in love with life even more, we need to be maintaining elevated emotions and elevated thoughts, such as gratitude and love with life, blissfulness, passion, fun, peace, or whatever it is.
That's really fascinating for me, because I'd always believed that my health journey, my fitness journey, and starting running was coming from a place of, I just want to be healthy. I want a healthy long life, but actually it's genuinely driven by fear. This fear I've had of getting a disease which is quite prevalent in my family, and it's that fear has been driving me on my running journey. Oh my God. That's incredible. So how can I is because I'm coming from that place of fear, then is that what sometimes makes me panic sometimes when I'm in the middle of a forest and doing a long run? Is that what the trigger is?
That'd be my best guess. I mean, we can
Okay.
never, I can't say like 100% for sure that is why. But when we have, you want to think about it, when we have like underlying stress,
Mm.
and someone who has, it's quite interesting when we do high stress. So we have someone working in the city and they're in this high stress environment. They have a high level of stress that they become used to. So this high level of stress now is their new normal. And when something little comes in, maybe, like people, especially in London, it's changed a little bit, but especially in London, in the city, people are like, rushing around their high stress environment at work, they bring it home, and they're constantly in this space. So when something little bit goes wrong, maybe the train is delayed, maybe someone cuts in front of them, somebody, they're having this really big reaction to something very small. And it's because they're doing high stress levels, and that's their new normal. So when something little comes in, it's now a big reaction. And sometimes we can do that with feelings of fear, where we have this high level of fear, but it becomes our new normal. So for us, it's a natural feeling. We're used to it. And then when we spot something, because the brain is editing your reality for fear, that's your filter. So it's looking for all the different things that could create more fear in your life.
Mm.
And so these little things that maybe you're spotting on your run, to your brain is like, whoa, like look at this. Oh, this is gonna like this could be like this is a huge potential or real threat for you. Like you have to see this, we have to make it known to you. And it will make a mountain out of a molehill. And it'll like wave red flags at it. It's gonna make it really big. It's gonna create all these feelings inside of you that are fear feelings. And so these little things can suddenly create, for example, to an extent, they could do panic attacks.
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
Whereas
because
for someone else, it wouldn't even kind of cross their radar because they're looking at how fun the run is.
yeah, which normally in like 85-90% of the cases, it absolutely is. And it's such a joy. And I'm so thrilled that I found it. But I mean, I've always had this, I've always lived with anxiety. During my 30s, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and panic attacks. This was a fallout from a decade in my 20s of chemical crutches and substance abuse, which was a flow over from eating disorder in my teenage years, which had all sorts of repercussions. So I think I've always lived with anxiety and fear. And because at the beginning of my 40s, I'd managed to stop taking the anti-anxiety drugs I'd been on for over 10 years, and I wasn't seeing psychologists anymore. And I'd started this new this health journey. So I figured it was a new me, in my 40s, new me, happy, going out, exercising, doing all this stuff. But actually, it's probably still there.
It could just be underlying. So what happens? I mean, you've already done such a great job. I mean, you've got to where you are today, which is absolutely bloody amazing. So you want to be
Thanks.
congratulating yourself on that amazing progress. And we want to be celebrating the wins, the big and the small ones. So you've done such a great job. And the fact that, 80 to 90% of your runs are amazing and they're really fun, that tells me that you've done a really great job at transforming some of these limiting and unhelpful feelings that you were doing in the past. And it's just like, it's almost a bit like a hangover. There's still like that 10%, which is just irritating, kind of like, when you've got a mosquito buzzing around.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the best way to do that is to start to think, these are the things that I'm doing. So we're always talking about feelings and stuff that we have in this passive way. Like I've lost motivation. That phrase really irritates me. It's like you can't lose a feeling. It's not your car keys. It's something you're doing. And we're doing high levels of motivation or we're doing low levels of motivation. And this do word is so important because it makes us realize that we are active in the creation of things, whether they're helping us or not helping us. And I also, when I'm teaching my clients, we eradicate positive and negative because it just trips us up. And the world isn't that black and white. It's not true or false, right or wrong, positive and negative, all of these different feelings can be helping us or not helping us. And sometimes to feel fear is a really helpful feeling because it's helping us identify, what are the threats in our environment that we have to be aware of. Same with anxiety. But when we get stuck in that anxiety or that fear loop, that's when it becomes a problem. We get anchored in the past and we're feeling almost that these feelings are terrorizing us because we can't get away. And the do enables us to see, oh, I'm doing anxiety, I'm doing self-doubt around my ability to run 30K or 20K or 25K. I'm doing feelings of, trouble or fear. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm doing this, I'm active in creating this process and creating this feeling. Well, what would I love to do instead? If we're taking yourself back to that village, it's like, well, I'd love to do confidence. I'd love to be able to run down there with peace and joy. And then it's thinking, well, how can I achieve that? And it could be driving to the village and just checking it out and then running the next day. Or maybe it could be, doing it with James as well. So we want to be guiding ourselves. How can I help myself to feel these different feelings?
I love that. I love that concept of doing the emotion as opposed to having that emotion, because my brain is really, really annoying. It's and again, this comes from the decade plus of anxiety attacks. Like if I was in a situation before or a similar situation where I had a panic attack, then because even now to this day, I had a panic attack once on the underground in Lyon. And to this day, I cannot ride that underground train unless somebody I know is with me. My brain won't let me go in there. So it does have this uncanny knack of if I have a stressful experience or a moment, then my brain will say, don't do that again, because remember what happened last time. And then that's it. Yeah. I cannot do it. So I love that concept of doing fear, because if I can do it, I can undo it. And then I can do something else instead. I love
and
that.
Sometimes it's really this one change is so powerful.
It's really powerful.
It's really powerful, like crazy powerful. And especially when we're doing very strong emotions, like the tube, like that's a very strong emotion. It's a very strong memory. And when we're like, I can do something else, we've opened a door of opportunity. And it's thinking, what can I do instead? And if you can ride the tube with someone else, you can ride the tube on your own.
I know, logically, right? Exactly.
Yeah, it's just the brain's coded the experience to be different. And it's very normal that when we have a very strong reaction to something, those brain pathways are like, a neuro superhighway. And you need to turn it into a country road, that one that's super twisty turny, very difficult to find. And you can do that by scrambling the neuropathways. I've helped people overcome dentist phobias in 90 minutes because we're scrambling the brain pathways. And that's what you have to do, especially with when you're doing strong fears, when you're doing strong feelings of fear and phobias, you've really got to scramble those neuropathways and starting to reframe it. So, there was a story that I listened to a while ago, and someone was on the London bus bombings, and they were doing fear of, traveling in London again. And the guy turned around, he's like, oh, well, can you be my bodyguard then? And she was like, what the fuck? Why would you want me to be your bodyguard? He's like, well, the chances of you being in another situation like that is like 0.1%. He's like, if I travel with you, I'll be really safe. And she's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that before. And so you're just like with the brain, it's just constantly opening different doors and different windows to get through to the other side of where you want to go. And the do is so powerful for that because it gives you much more influence over how can I open that door, because it's giving you that second option.
And I love the way you use the word influence as well, as opposed to control, because I think for me, everything's been driven by control, either stuff that I've tried to control, which is why I've always had issues with eating disorders or chemical abuse or panic attacks, because it's my constant need to try and control the situation, which again I think is quite it's not a safe thing. Control, I don't think, is a safe thing, but influence, just changing the word and using influence instead of control is quite a powerful linguistic tool, I think.
Yeah, it's funny you pick that up. So I really hate the phrase control the controllables. You hear it
Yeah.
all the freaking time. I'm like, oh, can we just ban this phrase? Because nothing is 100% controllable.
Mm,
You can never control something 100%. And when we use the word control, as you said, it's got quite negative connotations, like
mm,
1984 kind of vibes.
yeah.
And when we think about controlling the situations, like, you can't pick up the TV remote and change that person or response or the situation. It's just impossible. But you can think, how can I positively influence this situation? And it's always by influencing yourself in a more helpful and life enhancing way. So I'm always saying to my clients, like, influence the influentials. What can you influence and how can you influence it?
I
And
love
it
that.
it gives you it gives you so much more power
Mm,
over your inner and your outer world. And it's interesting you also mentioned the word try, because that's like the number one thing I ban for my clients as well, is I'm trying to install this habit. I'm trying to, control the situation. But trying again, it suggests that something's very difficult, something's very hard, and you'll probably fail. Like, oh, I'm really
yes.
trying to
Yeah.
meditate. You hear it all the time, like, oh, I'm trying to go to the gym, I'm trying to meditate, I'm trying to eat healthy. And the people who use the word try it never works,
Yeah,
because you've
it's almost
already
got
set yourself,
built-in
yeah,
failure
you've set
to that
yourself up to
word.
fail before you've started. So I tell my clients, delete that word from your vocabulary along with, the shoulds and the musts and the needs, and think, okay, what would I love to do? And how can I do it in the best way possible or in the most enjoyable way possible for me?
Nice. Nice. I love that. So when I do my long run, if I get a little niggle or a twist of fear that makes me think I can't do it, so I'm gonna not do the fear and do the joy, do the bliss that I find for most of my runs. I do find that joy and that bliss, and I'll do that instead. This
Yeah.
was
And if you
amazing.
want to prime your brain for the run, the best way is to visualize it. So step into the feelings of love, joy, bliss, whatever they are that you want to feel, and then visualize how you're feeling them in your body, because you need to train your body to feel those feelings when running, and flow it through the run as if you're there in the first person, and take it to the next level by doing it in the past. Like, oh, I loved the run. It went brilliantly and it was so enjoyable, because your brain's like, oh, it's a memory. Oh, it's already done it.
Genius.
Mm.
Yes, because I've been doing yoga for thousands of years. It's really
Oh,
helped with
amazing.
my it's really helped with my anxiety. And so I'm quite good at meditating. And so like for the Bristol half, I did it last year, and James and I have done a couple of ultra marathons as well. And so I do practice like this visualization technique of putting myself on race day and doing the race, but thinking about it in past tense, like it's
Mm.
done. Of course, it makes so much sense when somebody else says it.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
past tense, and
genius.
then putting in the feelings, because in a
Yes.
memory, as I said, is the feeling, and see, some people are really good visualizers. So if you're really great at visualizing, a lot of people will just visualize, but they're not thinking, well, how am I feeling in that moment? So you're halfway to priming the brain. But when you put in a feeling into that visualization, now you've created a memory. Because if you think
That's
about all those
amazing.
powerful times in the past, whether it's a good or a bad memory, especially, with the tube, you have a very strong emotional attachment to
Oh,
that.
it's visceral. It's
Yeah.
visceral. Yeah. Mm.
So you want to do that, but with good feelings, like those elevated emotions for the race.
Huh. I love it. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
This
my
was
pleasure. That was fun.
it was so enlightening, and I'm not using that word in a kind of non-literal sense. Literally, that was enlightening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for being
I
brave to
have
do
a
it with me.
question.
Mm.
I'm gonna chip in with a question now. Like, do you think that when someone's starting off on a health and fitness and improvement journey, this type of way of talking to ourselves is much more common than people might think? And to follow that question on, what do you think it is about us that has made humans that way? Do you think it's a societal impact, or do you think there's something ingrained in the deep in the human organism and our psyche that makes us say, "I'm trying to do this," and talk in a slightly negative way about the journeys we're trying to go on?
We've got two different things happening here. So the first one is the way the brain has been developed, like with human evolution, it's been trained to be in survival mechanism. The brain is constantly scanning our environment. What's a threat to me and what's not? And we've now got to a place in society where, we're not being eaten. So the threats are now perceived and they're not usually real. they're ones that we have, that the brain's kind of created. Like stress, anxiety, all of these feelings are coming from perceived threats, which aren't life or death in our environment, but the way that our world is now created, it's to trigger these things and these feelings in the body. And then if we're going down the rabbit hole, it's social conditioning. Like everything, the entire environment we are living in is socially conditioning us to live in fear, to live in anxiety, to live in pain, whether it's physical or emotional or both. And you see it on the news, you see it in marketing, you see it in the way that our education system is created. And if we're getting political, if you want to think that if the larger bodies had our best interests and they wanted us to be super healthy and they wanted us to live our best lives, what would they be including in the system? What would they be saying to ourselves, to us, instead of what the actual narrative is? Because at the moment, it's created to trigger fear and anxiety, so we make choices and decisions from the place of those feelings, which are very limiting feelings, but then they do make us more easy to control.
To control, yeah.
For want
that
of a
word
better
again.
word. Yeah.
So that would be like, that's if we're going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating.
And that's why I recommend no one to watch the news, because what actually is it helping? Is it helping you live your best life? Is social media helping you to live? And I did a post the other day about junk food. You wouldn't feed your body junk 24/7. So why do we feed our brain junk 24/7?
Absolutely agreed. And that was fascinating. Listening to that conversation you two just had was quite remarkable. I think enlightening is a good word for that. I know that it's very hard to distill what you give to people one-on-one down to a message, but if there was something you wanted to impart to people out there listening, is there a single brain training message that you could like to say to your audience, whether it's think about something in a different kind of way, or get in touch, or what would you say to people?
You want to be your personal detective. So you want to become really good at detecting what unconscious programs are limiting me in living my best life, and what do I need to transform. The best and most simple way is you've got to, like, if you want to live your best life, people go, I want to live my best life. I want to eat healthy. Great. What does that actually look like? What does that feel like? If you're thinking about your best version of yourself, what do they have to believe, identify, think, feel? What choices do they have to make? What decisions do they have to make? What experiences do they have to have in order to get there? And often when we are thinking about, I want to live my best life, I want to live my dream life, I want to achieve this goal, we don't really know what does that actually feel, look, sound, taste, and smell like. And that's what you have to really understand in order to close that gap quickly and more easily and more enjoyably between where you are now and where you want to get to.
Amazing. So what's next for you, Adelaide? What exciting things have you got coming up?
I've actually just launched a secret podcast series, which, based on our conversation today, would be very apt. It's called Your Brain Bootcamp, and it's a 5-day workshop series. You can listen to it anytime. And it takes you through, how does our brain work? How does our unconscious programming work? And what simple techniques can we start to implement, like the ones we've spoken about today? So we really dive into the do. We dive into, how do our words influence our language? How do we get caught up in a downward spiral or a negative feedback loop? And how can we step into these performance and life enhancing brain pathways, feelings, loops, and patterns so we can live our best life? And for me, that's the most exciting thing at the moment. I just launched it literally 2 days ago. We've had over 20 people sign up for like two LinkedIn posts, 2 Instagram posts or something. So it's really exciting. So that's, for me, I'm thrilled about. And then that launches the Ultimate Champion Adventure, which has been 3 years in the making.
Wow.
Hundreds of people have gone through my methodology, and now it's in this one online place, and it's group coaching. It's a mix of, listening to my training. It's a mix of video, podcast format, PDF, and workshops. And I've discovered that when we're embarking on the brain training, when we're embarking on living our best life, like, for me, adventure is such a central part of my life. And I was like, but actually, the whole brain training is an adventure. Living our best life, it's an adventure, because once we get to one level of our best self, we're saying like, well, now I can get to this level. So we're always going for different summits, whatever that looks like for the person. So that's what I'm really excited about, is opening the doors to the ultimate champion adventure.
That sounds amazing.
It does. And where can people find you online if they want to find out more about that, about you, about services you offer? We will include links to your stuff in the show notes as well.
Super simple. Adelaide Goodeve on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. And if you're interested in signing up to my Brain Bootcamp podcast, then you can go to adelaidegoodeve.com/bootcamp.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for coming along.
It's been
Thank
a
you so much for
fascinating
having me.
journey. Thank you so much, Adelaide. That was it was fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. You'll have to let us know how you get on.
I will do. Yes, thank you.
So that was absolutely fascinating, Maria. What were you expecting going into that conversation, and how different was that from those expectations?
It was mental. Like, I think it's quite obvious from my voice, perhaps, when I started talking to Adelaide, that I was a little bit nervous. I mean, I've delved deep into my psyche many, many times over the years because of all the various mental health issues I've had. But it is always a bit of a struggle for me to go back into those dark rooms. And I'm always a little bit worried about what's going to be uncovered. But this was a genuinely positive experience. I don't know what I was expecting, had no expectations. I was trying to think of a situation that I could discuss with her, something that I'd been stuck on, and that experience of the long run fear was the first one that came to mind, which is something that's constantly niggling at me through my training. So I had no expectations about what was going to happen, but I didn't realize it was going to be such a positive feeling when I finished talking to her. It was so eye-opening. So I'm really glad that I had a chance to talk to her on air. It was extraordinary.
So, I mean, my next question was going to be, is that something that you think might be useful to you? But it sounds like the answer is a yes, really.
Oh my, it's such a massive yes. I mean, I think, everyone should do it. Like, whether you're a runner or any sports, but it doesn't matter what you are. Like, if there is something that you need to change in your life, or if you just feel that you're a little bit stuck and you don't know why, especially I think if you don't know why, then have a chat with Adelaide, because she knows how to ask you those questions, the right kind of questions, to help you pick apart what is keeping you stuck in place wherever you are.
Do you think I need
Speak
it?
to Adelaide. Yeah, you definitely need it, mate. Like, if anyone in the world needs it most, it's for sure you. Speak to Adelaide, will ya?
Well, it has been a hell of a hike. So how about we stop and have a coffee?
I'm desperate for a coffee. Let's go get one. The weekly roast. Is that it?
So this week I have bought a coffee called the Artisan Roast, which is from South America and Peru. I was given this
fancy.
I know I was given this a couple of weeks ago in whole beans, so I've been grinding it up merrily ever since. I thought I'd share some with you. What have you got there?
I love the smell of freshly ground beans.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like it, except maybe cut grass, but then coffee before grass. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd rather have a cup of coffee than grass. This is it's from the Andean highlands of northern Peru, and it is got all manner of caramel and cashew nut in it, and it is. I know. I know.
Say that word again, mate.
It's a cashew nut.
Nice. I love a cashew.
Let's be honest. You said you've had a positive week when it comes to exercise and being outdoors. Is there anything you struggled with this week?
The biggest issue for me this week was trying to fit all of my training in with my schedule. It was a really busy schedule this week with my choir rehearsals and then the big concert and everything. I'm proud of myself though, because I did manage to do all of my training. And the reason why I managed to squeeze it in regardless is because I have got this Bristol half marathon coming up, and I'm desperate to get to do a sub 2. So I was really, really focused on doing all of my training. But I will be honest, it was a grind this week, and I had to really be disciplined to get out and do it. What about you?
Do you think having that objective helped you find that discipline and find a path through the busyness to get the training done anyway?
Oh yeah, for sure. If I didn't have the half marathon coming up, I would have skipped my strength like you did. I probably wouldn't have gone out when it was raining. So yeah, for sure, the fact that I've got this race coming up made me get out and do my training. Otherwise, I would have phoned it in a little bit for sure. How about you?
Yeah, well, we were discussing just before we recorded the podcast, I'm struggling with an actual injury. I've got this weird.
Not another one.
I know. I've got a strange hip flexor pain in my right flexor, and it doesn't hurt when I run, but it hurts when I walk. And I've had about 6 people now, because I put the call out on the internet saying any of my contacts or friends can give me some help, including you. And about 6 people have said I need to do some yoga poses to loosen up the hip flexor. So
I've got two really, really good ones for you. I don't know. I know one is called Scorpion. I don't know what the other one's called. Leg stretch? Who knows? I don't know. I will show you these 2 poses afterwards. Yeah, they'll help. I promise. Turn it up.
That'll probably do, won't it?
Oh, I've got such a good tune for the Spotify playlist this week. Okay, so we're going to go old school with my tune. We are going to listen to Prodigy's Smack My Bitch Up, because it's a banger.
And what does that do to you when you're training?
Well, first of all, it's a really, really long tune, so that's quite nice. I know as soon as it starts, I've got a good sort of 7 minutes of just trancing out to this tune. That's it. That's the word, trance. It's a really, really good tune to help me kind of forget about the burning in my legs, the fact that it's a really steep climb. I can just really trance out to that music and fly away for a little bit before I come back to the reality of the agony in my thighs.
So I want to add something to your selection, is that a tune that was released very recently, which I discovered on Spotify, which is Rocket Fuel, which is Kasabian versus The Prodigy. I listened to it while I was driving the kids to primary school today.
Shut the front door.
They enjoyed it and I enjoyed it. So I'm going to add that to your should listen list. That's not my addition to the playlist this week.
Oh,
so
mate.
that's a recommendation for you to have a listen to and for others.
Kasabian
versus the Prodigy. It's called Rocket Fuel.
Rocket Fuel. That's old school proj, that is. But yeah. Okay.
My addition to the playlist this week is a song called Tech Noir by Gunship, which is John Carpenter and Charlie Simpson. This is one of the most emblematic songs of the synthwave scene, and I absolutely love it. It starts with John Carpenter giving a bit of a monologue about an impending nuclear Armageddon. Then it
sounds fun.
Kicks in with some synth waves and gives you some just a really consistent sort of modern techie beat to run to. I absolutely love it.
Okay, nice, awesome.
So have a good old listen to those two. There'll be both of those tunes will be added to the Get Out In It playlist on Spotify. So search Get Out In It on Spotify and you will find us. You'll not only find that playlist, but you'll also find the podcast. That's about it from us today, isn't it? Other than to say that anybody who signs up on our website for our newsletter now will receive their personal development friend in their inbox, which is a complete rundown. It's a PDF, personal development friend, which is a complete rundown of taking the first steps towards health and fitness for the first week of change, and it includes.
And don't they get something else a little bit special with that as well?
And if you do go onto our website, sign up for the newsletter, download the PDF, then you can book a consultation to follow on from that first week of changing your life with the two of us on Zoom, and we can talk about how you've done and the next steps.
Sounds like a solid reason to sign up for our newsletter.
It truly does. So thanks for listening, everybody. That was a great episode. Really enjoyed the chat with Adelaide.
And, it was amazing. Yeah,
we'll see you again.
See you next week. Bye.
Cheerio. Thanks for hitting the trails with us this week. We'll meet you back here next Monday for more news, more views, more nature.
All the links for our socials are in the show notes. Find and follow us on Facebook, Insta, YouTube and Twitter. You can subscribe to our newsletter from our website for all the latest updates and camp plans. You get a fun free gift when you sign up.
Leave a review on your podcast app. It's really easy and really helps us out.
And if you've got any friends who could do with getting out in it, then bring them along to next week's outdoor adventure. We'd love to have you all with us.
Catch you next week. Cheerio.